Hi, I'm Bob Sambol, and this is today's Rare Conversation with Mike McGuire, the CEO of Andrews Distributing. Mike, thanks for doing this.
Thank you, Bob.
This is a special one. This is my first one with a supplier, someone who really understands how to take care of a customer. And I've had a long relationship with Andrews. Barry Andrews became a dear friend of mine, someone I trusted, someone who literally cared about my business and me and my family. He walked into Bob's back in '93 when we first opened, knew I was struggling, walked in, introduced himself, and said to me, "What can I do to help?" You know, I've never forgotten that, and I use that as a standard for every other supplier I ever meet. And he did help. He told me about his company, which has changed a lot, and we'll get to that in a minute, and what he offered. With that, he started entertaining there. He started bringing his friends there. Of course, met Lana, your mother-in-law, and his kids and his family and his business associates. Invited me to lunch to meet other people. He just cared. But he wasn't doing that just with me. I love to tell the story about Barry used to invite me to lunch, fair amount. And then one day, I had lunch with Barry at 11. We met at 11 o'clock at Maple and Motor,
Okay.
which he
Oh, yeah.
loved.
Loved it.
And then that night at the restaurant, a guy comes in and says, "Yeah, I was with a buddy of yours today. I had lunch with Barry Andrews." "No, you didn't. I had lunch with Barry Andrews." "No, we had lunch." "What time did you have lunch?"
Yeah.
"About 1 o'clock at Maple and Motor." So I called Barry up. I said, "Do you have 2 lunches?" He says, "Yeah, that's the only way I can get it all in."
Yeah, yeah. He was famous for the double lunch.
The
That
double
was one of his
lunch.
favorite things.
Double lunch.
Lunch was his dinner too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how social Barry was.
Right.
Having a meal with a friend was everything to him.
Yeah, yeah. Because he did.
Yeah.
You cemented. He cemented his thoughts about and his ideas about how he can help you, but he was concerned about you, want to know about your
Always.
family and all
Always.
that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about you come in, you end up marrying his daughter.
Yep. Married Natalie, and we get married in 1997.
Okay.
And then I joined the company the summer of 2002.
Right.
Yeah.
And the company then was nothing like it is now, but it was a force of beer in DFW.
Great company.
And I'm going to say what Barry said to me, and you can take it from there. So I said, "Hey, how's it going with your son-in-law?" He goes, he doesn't know as much as I know about the beer business, but he knows a lot more about everything else.
Oh, that's so
And
nice.
boy, do we need it. So tell me how that progressed from there.
That's so nice. And too, coming in, so you think about Nat and I, we meet, fall in love, we get married, we have our girls. So we have Maddie, we have Sophie, and the company I work for was in high tech. And I worked with one company from when I graduated college, so that was in '86, all the way through that time frame. So, 15, 16 years at that point. And honestly thought that was my path. And the company was based out of Boston. And eventually the next best thing for me to do was going to be there. And Nat and I talked about it, and she was great. She thought, "Hey, if this is what's best for us and for your career, let's do it." But I knew that if we moved there, I was going to be on a jet flying to Europe or going to Asia. It was a global high-tech company, and we were growing like crazy.
Right.
And we just got to where I'm like, I don't know that this is really, what we really want or the best thing for our family. And then at the same time, Barry and I started to talk. And I always joke too, Natalie's my manager. And so, I mean, when I think about my relationship with my father-in-law, we were always great, great friends, best of friends. But then when you start kind of getting into a work environment, it gets a little bit, that's how do you do that? How do you work together? And I didn't want to have any conflict. The family was the most important thing to me. And so Natalie always helped us along the way. And so Barry and I talked a whole bunch, and we thought we could make it work. And we definitely had no idea I'd be the CEO of the company today and the company would look like it did. It was more like, let's try. My background was all in sales and marketing. And I had been with a company that went from, when I joined it, 100 million in sales. The first year I joined in '86, and when I left, it was 12 billion in sales.
Wow.
And I was one of the first 50 employees. And so what happened is I just saw a lot.
Yeah.
It's not like I made lots of decisions, because I was a young guy when I first started, but I saw what the company bumped into, where issues happened. I saw some of the things that the leaders did that I thought was like, made a lot of sense at the time. I was like, what are they doing? Why are they doing that? Why do we need that person? And why do we need that technology? And what I realized is I got to see a company scale and kind of go through growing pains and learn. And so it was awesome because it really prepared me for what Barry and I worked together on. And Barry said to me, look, if you jump in with me, what we could do is really grow the company. And he said, I don't want to be the biggest, I want to be the best, but there's a lot of things strategically that'll make sense for us to do. And so I jumped in with Barry in '02, and then we got to work side by side for 20 years. I had the ultimate mentor, in my mind, the best relationship person I'd ever met. And in my mind, the best beer leader I'd ever met. And so I just had an incredible blessing to be able to be with him and to learn with him. And he's sweet to say, the nice things that he said. I think because of my technology background, the beer industry was not very tech savvy. And I think I was able to bring in some new ideas around that. And it was interesting, Nat and I talk about it, because in a lot of ways, he was bringing in an outsider to kind of come help him transform the business. But I was also an insider because I was family. And so it's amazing how God works, because I think that's what we needed to be able to kind of work through some of the things we worked through. Because I think if you actually had brought in an outsider into the environment that was very much used to doing things the way it did it, it would have been really challenging for that person, I think, to do.
Well, I think one of the things from an outsider looking at it and being good friends with Barry and talking with him, I got to give you the credit for coming in here and not trying to be Barry.
No.
You came in here and you were Mike.
Right on.
Which was different than Barry.
And too, Bob, blessed that I had had all the experiences that I had, because I could see for like a younger person, I had had 16, 17 years of experience and been through a lot of different learnings along the way. So I felt like I was actually qualified to come in and be helpful. And so my goal was just like, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to be doing, but my goal was, I'm going to step in, I'm going to learn as much as I can from Barry. I'm going to be there to help him in any way I can, and any way that I can add value. I feel like leaders add value. I'm going to do anything I can, anywhere I can, to add value to anyone, whether it's customers, employees, suppliers. And I know that's, the culture that Barry built was so much around relationships and helping others. And I feel like we always connected deeply on the values that were really important to us. And I would say too, coming out of high-tech public company and working for Barry, it was so refreshing to kind of step into a family-run business where we can look out 10 years and make decisions that are where we want to be in 10 years. We don't have the pressure that public companies have. And so that was really refreshing, because I had been, when I was in tech, it was the most important minute of the most important hour of the most important day, and the most important month, and the most important quarter in the history of the company. And that was like every second was that level of intensity. So to be able to kind of step back, not have that level of pressure, but still be very performance oriented. And I would also say too, for Barry and I, we really connected on values, loved each other. I did everything I could to help him in any way I could. And then we also connected. He was always about, even if it was something on technology that he didn't completely have experience with, we'd talk about it and he'd say, how does it make us better? And I'd talk about it. And what we always aligned on too was he was big on better. And the theme for our company for the past 2 years that we're all talking about is even better. And so, and it was something that we love it as a family, because we know it's channeling that energy that was like contagious with Barry, about how do we keep doing things better for our customers, better for our people, better for our suppliers, show up better in our communities. And, we can never be stagnant. We can't stop evolving.
Well, listen, you're the epitome of the old saying that your management style will take you to a certain point, and then if you don't adjust, it'll take you right back down.
Sure.
So you guys together got to a certain point, and then together you figured out what's going to make you better.
Yeah.
So you start to really get involved, and you start to, was it a hard or an easy decision to keep at, it was Miller, I still to this day, that's all I drink is Miller Lite, because
Yeah.
I can't do that to
I
Barry.
love Miller Lite
I
too.
can't do it to Barry. I can't drink something else. But I remember when you guys took on Coors Light. That was
Yeah.
a big deal. So
Yeah.
was it a huge? How did that take into these? You just took me on a tour of the warehouse.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable how many brands of
Isn't
beer you have.
Yeah.
Let alone, we'll get to spirits in a minute. But
Yeah.
was that a hard decision or an easy decision?
Okay, so Barry taught me that. And so Barry looked at it, and he had friends growing up who were in the beer industry, their parents were. And so he saw what happened with Pearl. I think it was Pearl and then Falstaff, or Falstaff and then Pearl. And it was the #1 beer, and then it just kind of did the life cycle of a brand. And back then, every distributor was like a car dealer back in the day. You were Chevy, you were Ford, you weren't both. And so Barry gets in with Miller, but he knows that, from growing up, because he had some friends. And so in the back of his mind, when he got going, he knew that was a risk. Basically having one product. And at the time, Miller Lite was really just starting in 1976 when Barry started. And Barry was 29. He was the youngest beer distributor ever awarded a distributorship. And I mean, that was amazing from Miller. But in the back of his mind, he had that, and he's told me this story, and he was worried about it. It was like all your eggs in one basket kind of deal that he was worried about. And so Barry was one of the pioneers of what we call today the multi-branded beer distributorship. And so if you look at Corpus Christi, Corpus had 8 distributors. He bought every one except for our primary competitor. So he bought 6. And the idea was, if we show up to see you and we have a broader portfolio of brands, we can serve more needs that your customers have, right? Because people like different brands for different occasions and different things. So that was really Barry's strategy. The interesting thing was the brewers didn't like it. And so the first time he tried to put Miller and Coors together in Dallas, Coors rejected the deal. And he was so disappointed. It was going to be a joint venture. And Coors rejected the deal. And I remember, because Nat and I were married, and I remember he came back from this big meeting thinking that it was going to be approved, and it wasn't. And he was real disappointed. And that was in 01. I joined in 02. And then he gets a call. So I joined in July of 02. He gets a call right before Thanksgiving of 02. And it's an industry broker, says, hey, do you want to buy Coors in Dallas? And he's like, I've already done it. I already tried. They're not going to approve it. They told me that. And he said, why don't you try again? And we had the deal done by January of 2023. And that was the biggest deal ever for us, because at the time we had 200 people, they had 200 people. So we literally bought a company the same size of ours and put it together. And that work took us a couple of years, but it was perfect timing because I'd been here 6 months. And all of a sudden, at first I was like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I mean, I went from not jokes. When I was in high tech, I was like running 1,000,000 miles an hour. I was on planes. I never had time even during the day to talk. And I started here, and I was like calling her 5 times a day. And she's like, what are you doing? What's going on? And so thankfully, Barry bought Coors here in Dallas. And it was interesting because every meeting I'd go into, it was either you're like either meeting your current partners, so you're going to see Miller and they want to know what's going on that deal, and their concern is, how are you not going to lose focus on our stuff? And so that was Miller, that was Corona, that was Shiner, right? And then we'd go meet the new ones we were buying who had their franchise agreement, so they have to approve us. So we're going to meet Coors, we're going to meet Sam Adams, we're going to meet Heineken, and they're saying, how are you guys going to invest more in our brands than the current people who have it? And so it was really interesting because basically both sides wanted more. And our old, if we were a team, our old offense was like Miller Lite on one, ready, break. Everything was Miller Lite, right? And so now we're meeting with all these people, and Barry and I started talking about it, and we were Miller of Dallas. And as a family, Natalie and I started talking about this, and I said, I think we need to change the name of the company. And I think we need to be Andrews, not Miller of Dallas. And I think we need to be, learn how to sell a whole portfolio, because we can't just sell Miller, we can't sell Coors. We got to sell Miller, Coors, Corona, Heineken, Dos Equis, Sam Adams. We have to sell all this stuff. And so that was a really big transition for us to becoming that company. And, Nat did some lobbying behind the scenes with Barry, because at first he was resistant to kind of changing the name of the company.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, my
he
concern
told me about
was,
it. Yeah.
well, my concern about was like winners and losers.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's going to happen when half of your company feels like a winner
Yeah.
and half the company you just are putting together feels like a loser? And so what we worked on is, let's change the name. Let's go. Everybody's got to sell everything. It's going to be just hard for the Miller guys to sell Coors as it is Coors guys to sell Miller. And those guys used to fight each other. So we've got to come up with some new rewards that are like, we came up with All Andrews, and it was an award for the people who sell everything,
Mm-hmm.
the people who do it right. And then we worked really hard on our core values with everyone. And that was a really cool transition. And then we became one of the leading multi-branded distributors in the country. And we figured that thing out. And then we continued to do it. We moved west in 2008. And we bought the Miller Corona People distributor out in 2008. And then 2014, we bought the Coors people out, also in Fort Worth. And basically over time, we made a lot of acquisitions, and we built out more or less the total DFW footprint.
And how many beer brands do you have now?
Okay, I wrote some notes down for you. So when Barry started, he had one supplier, which was Miller. Today we have 72.
Okay.
We had 2 brands. We now have 1,676 brands. And we had, in the warehouse, we had 6 different items. We just toured the warehouse together with Monica. We have 3,524 items. Barry had 12 people. We now have 2,000. And we had 1 location. Now we have 6. And this is a good one. We had 4 delivery truck routes, and we now have 190 delivery truck routes. And we had 4 salespeople. Now we have 242. But, so those things, you think like, what's changed? All that's changed. But the idea of like continuing to make sure we have the brands customers want, which is what Barry was thinking about, has never changed. So we try to stay on the cutting edge of knowing what consumers want, and also that we can help you.
Yeah.
Because we want to be there when you're like, okay, Mike, we have this type of demographic here. What do you think will make the most sense? We want to be able to show up and really be a complete solution for you guys.
Okay, so let's kind of fast forward a little bit. Barry's been gone now how many years?
A little bit over 2.
A little over 2. Did he get to see you get the spirits, or no? That came after Barry passed.
No.
Okay, so Barry passes, huge to the community, of course, but huge to you.
Yeah.
You and your family and this building. And everybody in it. What was it that you said, we got to get in the spirits business? That would be the next step. That I know if Barry was here, he'd love it. That we've conquered the beer business.
Yeah.
So what was that moment where you said, I know it's the right thing to do?
So I got a call from the CEO of Sazerac. And so Sazerac's the #1 producer of spirits in the United States. They have the legendary Buffalo Trace. So you think Buffalo Trace, Pappy, all those amazing bourbon brands. So Jay called me and he said, hey, I want to talk with you. Would you guys be interested in distributing our portfolio in Texas?
And legally, it was
legally,
not a problem.
It was cool. We were we would have to kind of work through it. And I said to him, I was incredibly flattered. Barry and I had talked about it, but we really never had an opportunity with a marquee supplier, marquee distiller like that. Never happened. And so we talked about it, and I asked Jake for a little bit of time. And I said, we're totally flattered, and this sounds like an amazing opportunity, but I want to make sure it fits our strategy. We're really good at beer. If we're going to extend our playbook into spirits, we have to make sure it works. And I want to make sure that we're not going to do something that's going to make us less strong in beer. Ultimately, we wanted something that if we added to it, it would make our core beer business better.
Compliment.
Yeah, complement and even better. And so we probably spent about 60 days. I brought in a good friend who's an amazing consultant, and he worked with our team, and we really worked through all the issues. And at the end of the analysis, we're like, yeah, this is going to make us better. And I think about like our relationship. I think about how much spirits you sell. You sell a little beer, you sell a lot of spirits and a lot of wine. And so when I think about Bob's, now I have so much more to offer you.
Sure.
And it's good for you on the spirit side. We've got great service, but it's also good on the beer side because we're in there with you more frequently, and we can look at it together. Yeah. And so it was interesting that the accounts that I call like Katie Trail Ice House a beer first account. And we were, we sell tons and tons of kegs. Every week we're selling you know, like multiples of kegs. They're
More than anybody
amazing.
else.
And yeah, they're the #1 Blue Moon draft account, I think, in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and that's their summer beer. That's
Yeah.
part of it. But anyways, we analyzed it and we looked at it. We're like, it makes us stronger with our beer first accounts. It makes us more important to spirits and wine first accounts. Then we had to look at it and say, how do we need to make sure we have the capability to do it. And we've had great success with it. You know, we had to learn it. It was a lot to learn the first year. We were for sure crawling, you know, because there's a lot of differences too.
Sure.
And so we had to learn those differences. Like we sell full cases of beer. You might want 1 bottle of Buffalo Trace.
Right.
So our warehouse isn't set up for 1 bottle.
Yeah.
And so we had to think through, how are we going to do that? The other big one is obviously like the rare, you know, you kind of look at the rare bottles and, you know, how do we do that? We literally in Fort Worth created a vault. So we have a vault there that's like, I think 6 people have access to the vault. And when they're in the vault, they're on camera.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't have bottles of that value walking. And so we had to learn how to do that, how to manage that with, you know, all of our retailers to do it in a really highly ethical way where they feel comfortable, very transparent way. So we had a bunch to learn, and I feel like we made great progress.
Yeah, you have. You know, it's a wonderful history. It's a wonderful lesson in business. It's a wonderful lesson in knowing your customer and figuring out how to take better care of them. When you think about, now, here we are, 2026, the restaurant landscape in Dallas is just blown up.
Oh, yeah.
Blown up. So when you and your team meet, what's the one thing you talk about now that's happened here in Dallas that, guys, we need to address this? These guys are, this is different now. Now you got the spirits, you're dealing with
Totally
obnoxious restaurateurs like me, and you're trying to take care of them. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, we get a little frustrated sometimes where you only get 1 bottle of Pappy 25 every year and this and that.
Sure.
And so you have a whole set of problems, you know. But when you look at the restaurant landscape, what kind of, it's got to be exciting for you because it just keeps growing.
So exciting. When you think about DFW, we were just with our team looking at some information. DFW itself is bigger than 38 states in the United States.
Wow. That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And so when you look at Texas, Texas is the #1 beer market in the United States. DFW is the #1 beer market in the United States. You look at all the population growth. Now we're into spirits with this great Sazerac portfolio. So it's such an exciting time. We have our girls in the business, you know, with gosh, all that we've done as a family, our whole family's now in working together, which is really special. And I think as we talk about it as a family and the girls talk about it, the girls are out, they're visiting you, they're looking at the landscape. I mean, they kind of know the scene, they know the bar scene better than I do. And so it's awesome to get feedback from them. I think one of the things that we're noticing that we need to keep evolving on is, I think it's going to become even more important that we can walk in and visit with your key people and ask them how we can help them. And so I think our investment in professional salespeople and really being able to come in and be a great partner, I think that investment is going to keep growing.
Well, I think the difference when I got this incredible tour today, and I've been here before, of what I see in your team, different than other teams that I visit, is that unfortunately in 6th grade career day, which I forgot to ask you, the question I always ask every person I interview. In 6th grade career day, what did little Mikey raise his hand and say he wanted to be?
It's funny you say that. I knew you were going to mention that because I've seen you ask that question.
And I forgot to do it, so I saved it to last.
No, it's funny you say that. I was thinking about it, and I mean, I always loved sports, you know, but I honestly think I always loved business.
Okay.
And it's a funny story, but no kidding. One day coming down our street was a kid on a bike, and he had a paper bag on his shoulder, and I think I was 10 years old or something. And, you know, like you're a kid, you know everybody in the neighborhood. I didn't know this kid, and so I started to talk with him.
And where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Norwalk, Connecticut.
Okay.
And so he had the Norwalk Hour newspaper, and he's coming down the street at like 3 o'clock, and I said hi to him and said, I asked him what he was doing. And he was like, well, this is my job. I'm like, well, what happens? I drop the newspapers off and I get paid. And I said, well, how much do you make? He said, I make $10 a week. And so I said to him, look, if you ever don't want to do that, let me know. And sometime later he let me know, and I bought his route from him.
Wow.
And so I think that was my first acquisition. So I bought his paper route, and I was a paper boy for, we did the afternoon paper for probably 2 or 3 years.
Well, thank God you got out of the newspaper business, because you'd be broke right now if you were in it.
For sure.
But
I'll tell you what,
choice.
you learn a lot. You learn
Yeah.
like which house has the German Shepherd in the front
Yeah.
yard.
Or
when
it's
you're going to
raining.
collect.
It's
Yeah.
raining, and how hard it is to deliver.
Or snowing where I was.
It's same with your trucks,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
pouring rain
You're
or it's
pedaling in
icy. Yeah, same thing, same thing.
Yes.
Well, listen, the next segment has got to be with the family, your wife to start off with, and then your 2 daughters. So I just want to tell you that I know Barry's watching this right now, and he'd be so proud of you and
Thank
what
you,
you've
Bob.
accomplished, and
Thank
he'd be
you.
proud of me coming here to talk to you, and he'd be saying, you got time for lunch, right?
Nothing would
And
make
he'd
him
try to
happier.
squeeze, and I know he would have a 2 o'clock lunch scheduled after me.
For
But in
sure.
spite of that, I just want to say a couple of things. We kind of got disconnected a little bit. We hadn't seen or talked to each other for a while, and we got reconnected. And it's being involved and seeing everything you're doing with your family and this business has got me excited about everything going
Thank you,
on in
Bob.
this city, and
Thank you.
makes me a better businessman. You did something a few weeks ago where you invited a lot of my fellow restaurateurs in this room to talk about World Cup,
Yeah.
and how Andrews can make the World Cup experience better for all of us, and that was so impressive. All those guys came out of here saying, wow, that was great. No one else
you.
did that.
Thank you.
The Andrews did that.
Thank you.
So it's just the start of the next chapter of our relationship.
Thank you,
And
Bob.
I just want to show you something. This is a young Bob Sambol with Barry Andrews, and we figured out it was 30 years ago.
1996.
30 ago. Look at that
Yeah.
black hair.
Look
man,
at
and
you.
this-
You look
no
great.
gray hair
You
there,
look
baby.
great.
Yeah, that was no gray hair.
Hey, and also too, Bob, I will tell you, Barry, you were one of Barry's best friends. You're one of his favorite people in the world. He absolutely loved you. I can't tell you how many stories he would tell me about just conversations you all had over the years, and the fun things that you did. And I know on behalf of our family, we're joyful to be reconnected with you and Monica. And it's really exciting. It's such a fun time, and I love our relationship.
Well, the best thing I can show you is that in my Bible, every time I open my Bible, my placeholder is Barry Andrews.
The best.
And
Yeah.
so Barry comes to church with
Love
me
that.
every time I open my Bible, and that's
That's
the
awesome.
most special thing.
Love
Thanks,
that.
pal.
Thank you, my friend.